There is a word people are used to hearing nowadays, a word that adequately sums up the following: two-tier policing, two-tier authority, passing up white police officers for anyone who is not white into senior roles, having a former Scottish First Minister claim that any criticism of him is inherently racist, lying about his family's well-being, all the while saying some pretty monstrous things himself.
The most senior positions in Scotland are filled almost exclusively by those who are white. Take my portfolio alone. The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white. And not just Justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white. That is not good enough.
Oh no! What happened? Oh no! How terrible! That's just awful! How terrible! Oh no!
The word that sums up all these things comes under a single umbrella term: censorship. Now, don't get me wrong, I know there are probably many words, phrases, and things you could say to describe the situation as it currently stands in the Western world.
Fucking tipple!
Most of them I probably could not say on this platform thanks to YouTube's very sensitive guidelines.
We don't take kindly to your types in here.
However, recent events have caused me to visit the topic of censorship and to perhaps demonstrate to all you good people that censorship not only exists, it's all aimed one way.
It's all true!
I am quite certain you are all aware that Elon Musk and President Donald Trump have recently had a little chat online, and that description is no word of a lie, as Elon himself says.
But I'm honored to have this conversation. I want to emphasize it's a conversation, and it's really intended to just get a feel for what Donald Trump is just like in a conversation. So it's hard to catch a vibe about someone if you just don't hear them talk in a normal way. And when there's an adversarial interview, like no one's themselves in an adversarial interview.
Correct. Oh, thanks.
Over the course of 2 hours, they basically discuss many things: the assassination attempt for one, the US-Mexican border for another, etc, etc, etc. But that's not the story I want to highlight. No. The story I want to highlight comes from the European Union, or more specifically, a member of the unelected European Commission. Yes, for those that don't understand how the EU operates, its only democratic body are the ineffective members of the European Parliament, who have no power. They cannot create legislation, propose legislation, or remove legislation. Well, it seems a member of this unelected commission has written quite a lengthy letter to Elon Musk explaining to him, and I'll cliff note it for you, that
I am compelled to remind you that, as a very large online platform, you have the legal obligation to ensure X is compliant with EU law, and in particular, the DSA in the EU.
He goes on to say,
this notably means ensuring that all proportionate and effective mitigation measures are put in place regarding the amplification of harmful content in connection with relevant events.
Excuse me? This Mr. Breton appears to be unaware that A, X Twitter is an American company, not one based in the jurisdiction of the EU, and B, the United States has this little thing called, oh I don't know, what is it again? The First Amendment.
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
Musk is not a politician, nor any sort of negotiator or representative on behalf of a nation. He is a private sovereign citizen of the United States, and therefore the words "suck it" do come to mind.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
But that's not the issue with this. The issue is the fact it was written in the first place. Let me explain. This means that the European Commission believe their reach to be so great, so important, that they can dispense with a silly little thing like another country's laws as if they don't matter. The letter even states that
we are monitoring the potential risks in the EU associated with the dissemination of content that may incite violence, hate, and racism in conjunction with major political or societal events around the world, including debates and interviews in the context of elections.
Events around the world? I'm sorry, does the EU Commission rule the world now? Now, I realise they may wish to, but they don't, do they? And more importantly, this is a US presidential candidate being interviewed by a US registered company on US soil about an upcoming US election. What business is it of the EU again? Maybe, just maybe, part of the reason this EU Commissioner feels so emboldened to say these things is because tech companies have cooperated in the past, such as Facebook or Google.
Elizabeth Warren is saying that we should break up Google. And I love her, but she's very misguided. That will not make it better, it'll make it worse, because now all these smaller companies who don't have the same resources that we do will be charged with preventing the next Trump situation. It's like a small company cannot do that.
It's just a thought, but it does appear that this week has been a week for censorship, almost like it's a disease that people are catching. The Conservative Party of Great Britain, I say Conservative Party, the Social Democratic Party it should be named, appears so afraid of Nigel Farage that they truly think, that he actually cares that all these new potential leaders of this tired, decrepit and useless party have vowed, people, to ban the mean old Reform UK leader for simply asking a question about why the evil murder of those 3 children in Southport had not been properly identified. That's his supposed crime. A crime so heinous under Starmer's Soviet counties of Britain that he deserves to be blamed nearly single-handedly for all the riots that occurred in the last 2 weeks.
I think his remarks, let me put it like this, were deeply unhelpful to those officers that were then having to go out and deal with the consequence of the rioting.
This is not leadership. It is deeply irresponsible and dangerous.
And he needs to decide, is he a politician, a serious politician, or is he a social media content creator?
Please, someone, tell me the logic of this, outside of some cheap political stunt. Yes, I know these lazy, ineffective MP gas bags want to stick it to Reform UK because they fear what can happen in the future to their beloved party, but seriously, do they think anyone remotely right-wing who is able to tell 2 + 2 make 4 is going to fall for this?
Politics is the worst.
Well, that's perfectly fine, isn't it? Let's see those membership numbers grow. Let's see Reform win more elections because you guys keep using the stick instead of the carrot. And speaking of insufferable despots that have no business near a political office in this once great nation,
nice.
Two-tier Keir, the man in charge of a government that posted think before you post on a social media platform.
What a loser.
A social media platform that his MP seem to be running away from, has been very much living up to his new name. An old clip has emerged of the old comrade where he seems to be saying the exact opposite of everything he says now. Now, just to remind us all, let's take a look back at what he recently said about online activity concerning the riots and protests.
In relation to online and social media, the first thing I'd say is this is not a law-free zone. And I think that's clear from the prosecutions and sentencing. Today we're due sentencing for online behaviour. That's a reminder to everyone that whether you're directly involved or whether you're remotely involved, you're culpable and you will be put before the courts if you've broken the law. And so that's happening today, that sentencing.
Very, very interesting. But stop the press. Is this you too, Starmer?
Where communication is, as it were, merely offensive, grossly offensive, etc., then principles of free speech and free expression require there to be a high threshold and dictate that a prosecution is unlikely to be in the public interest in many of those cases.
And the factors which will suggest people might not be prosecuted include things like deleting it quickly if you've sobered up in the morning. Can you explain about that?
One thing that's very important in this area is that where free speech protects the subject matter, a prosecution must be proportionate. And when considering whether a prosecution is proportionate, The question of whether a communication is removed quickly, whether the individual expresses remorse, whether access to the communication is blocked, these are obviously relevant to any assessment of proportionality.
And will it be more or less likely for individuals to be prosecuted criminally now when they're using Twitter or Facebook, I think?
It's not possible to say whether it's more or less likely. There certainly haven't been enough cases. But this is clearly signalling that in those cases that are protected by freedom of expression, then there's a double safeguard, a high threshold, and consideration of the public interest before a prosecution will be brought.
What happened, Keir? What changed? Now, many people may infer, of course I wouldn't dream of speaking for them, but potentially they could say big money got to you, that the first sniff of real power changed you. That's all very plausible. It is. But if you have seen my previous video, you would know I have a different theory. Link for that video is in the description below. Yes, my theory, put simply, is he is a chameleon. He does and says what he needs to do in order to complete his true priorities, his true interests, that, in my opinion, is the only thing he truly serves. And what he serves, in his mind, is a greater cause. A cause that sees the completion of the Blair Project, the complete control of this nation under a one-party state, under one-party law, that even if you vote out said party, it doesn't matter. You won't be able to have any laws that they establish repealed due to the increasing powers given to the Supreme Court of this country and the removal of authority from Parliament. But again, just my humble little opinion. See the previous video for a full breakdown of that opinion. Let me leave you now with a final thought. Well, I say thought, more of a question. We know censorship in this country will get worse as this Labour's term in office continues. But how will this end? Starmer has seen what English rage can do on the streets when it is not organised. So, could someone or some organisation out there try to organise resistance and force Starmer out? Or perhaps, in the event that Trump gets re-elected, will he put pressure on Starmer to stop these draconian measures, as Trump has his own business interests here? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Tell me if you think any of that is plausible. Tell me if it's not plausible. Tell me what you think if there's a different scenario. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, take care and God bless.